Well, hello everyone. Yes, welcome to our first show for the new season, which will be an exciting episode on issues and answers with yours truly, Honorable Valencia Stovall. Today is Monday, September the 16th, and you're listening for the next hour to WCEG Network. We are the worldwide community. And we are the Worldwide Community Empowerment Group where we speak life into the community. You can log on to WCEGradio.com, watch us live on your smart TV, on your Roku cable channel, YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Subscribe free to our YouTube channel, WCEG Network. Like us on Facebook and Instagram. Connect with us on LinkedIn, TikTok, and Threads. Download our free WCEG mobile app. Alexa, play WCEG Talk Radio so y'all can talk directly to Alexa. Listen to WCEG on any of our 12 podcast distribution platforms. And of course, I must give this disclaimer. The topics and opinions of those of the show hosts and guests and not WCEG Network. And we thank you for your continued support for what we're doing. I was making sure I was posting on all my platforms, y'all. That's what I was working on doing when you saw me looking distracted. But okay, you know what? We're going to get right into the topic today. Woo, yes, it is party loyalty or people loyalty. So either you could say party loyalty versus people loyalty. So, right now we're in the thick of the 2024 election. And it's set to be decided, of course, on November the 5th across the United States. Political parties have been a standard fabric in our society. My dad, Deacon Stovall, is a dedicated member of the Democratic Party. I was elected Democrat for 8 years as a Georgia state representative in Clayton County, which is a majority Democratic-leaning county. I retired in 2020, ran as independent for U.S. Senate after the retirement of Senator Johnny Isakson, with about 21 people in that jungle race, with some prominent figures that were in that race as well. And because it was a special election, there was no primary election. And many people who supported me for 8 years, of course, decided to be loyal to their party instead of choosing a candidate who would be loyal to the people. And so those are some of the things we're going to be talking about is party loyalty versus people loyalty. And when I say party loyalty, I'm talking about the big parties, which are Republicans, Democrat, and you also have the Libertarian. Now, you also have the Independent Party, which the Independent Party here in Georgia is not a standard party like you would to other parties. There's no elected chair, vice chair, and other affiliations. And so when I decided to run as an independent, I decided to run as independent because I agree with some issues on both sides. Some on the Republican side, some on the Democratic side. And even as a legislator during that time was able to successfully work across the aisle, which that means Democrats and Republicans alike, to get some meaningful legislation passed that is even existing today. And so I didn't have a party loyalty. I had a people loyalty when I ran. And then in 2022, some of you may know, I ran an unsuccessful bid as a Democrat for Congressional District 5 for the late Congressman John Lewis's seat. And in that case, incumbent happened to be the Georgia Democratic Party chair. And of course, that whole loyalty to the party chair came in, not loyal to the candidate, with a proven record of being loyal to the people. And during this race, my candidacy was not allowed to even be debated by the opponent on the Atlanta Press Club debate series. There was some internal conspiracies going on. Remember, I said the disclaimer earlier, these are my opinions and not of those of WCEG Network. And so when you start looking at this whole big picture about a party, There are a lot of facets that go into the inner workings and behind the scenes of what's going on in these parties. And the average person, like many of you, do not have a clue. You really believe that some of these parties are doing great things. Some of them are, but a lot of times they're not. They're working against the people that they're actually supposed to be serving. And so there are good parts that the parties have done, both on the Republican side, the Democratic side, and even on the Libertarian side. But the part that I'm discussing and talking about specifically has to do with being loyal to a party of individuals that are making decisions behind the scene of what sometimes you have no idea of what's going on. And when they say, hey, we're going to vote like this, then you have those in that party say, okay, we're going to vote with the party. They don't ask any questions about, well, wait a minute, why are we voting like this? Or they don't even think about their own constituents in their district that even though the party said we need to vote like this, it may be in contrast to what the needs are in their particular district as far as those individuals that they're representing who elected them. Remember, we're in a democracy where we have people that are elected to serve for the good of the people, the common people. And so sometimes that does not happen. And so I ran, like I said, for that race in 2022, and because of meddling within the party of saying, no, we're going to keep this down. We don't want to have a debate series, which normally when you're running for a congressional seat, there's usually a debate between the incumbent and the opponent so that the people can be able to hear. And a lot of times as candidates, if you don't have a large amount of money to put into your candidacy, you have to depend on local news outlet, media outlet, radios, and everything to get your word out. But a lot of times you still don't even have money to do that. And so what ends up happening, the ones who have the money are the ones that are able to get the most massive word out to the people. And because a lot of times people don't pay attention for whatever reason, they're busy with other things, they are not able to vet the candidates very well to make sure that, hey, okay, this person is maybe a part of this party, but do they really align with what are the things that I want that are important for me as an individual voter or for my family? At the same time, it may be someone in another party that aligns up closer to the things that you want to see happen in your community that you may want to vote for. But then you say, oh, but that person is a part of this other party, and that party does these bad things. Well, both of them do bad things. I can tell you that right now. So there's no perfect party. So that's why you have to look at the platform of that party. And then you go a step further by looking at what the platform is for that particular candidate that you want to choose to vote for. And that means you have to do some research. You have to ask some questions. You have to show up at forums that happen. So that goes back to what I was saying about the Atlanta Press Club forum. Okay. So then I thought I was finished. I had already retired, so I thought I was finished. And then I was approached by many of my former constituents to run for office again. Yeah, again. The senator of District 34 had decided that she was going to retire after completion of her term, and this seat took in Clayton and Fayette County. And so here goes when I talk about party loyalty. I'm going to tell you, we're going to get into it, and then we're going to kind of bounce back on when did all this party affiliation really start in the United States. So we're going to do some little historical diving into it, but I'm leading up to it and want to give you a preface of what actually happened in this Senate race. And it's not uncommon, but some of the things that did happen I don't think had ever been done before in the state of Georgia. But it's not uncommon for a party itself to take allegiance and to work against individuals who are a part of their own party in an election. Just like you could take the whole thing that happened with the presidential election. when the current president decided, hey, I'm not going to continue on in this presidential race. And then now the vice president was said that, hey, well, I want to take up the realm. Well, of course, then there was no other consideration that the people were able to vote for deciding this. Of course, it was done at the party convention. And so some people said, well, hey, that's being too large to the party. What about allowing the people to be able to have an opportunity to decide on what was going on? And some people have a theory that says that the Democratic, that particular party's leadership knew that eventually was going to happen. They were just waiting for the debate to happen. And then others said, no, they didn't know. It just happened after the debate. Well, I believe that they knew way ahead of time. And it should have been allowed for the people to decide on who they wanted in that primary to vote for, and not just the one candidate. But anyway, coming along, going back down to the local, this particular local race. And so there was no doubt, of course, I was the most qualified by experience and dedication to the community that I had served for 8 years. And this was showed up in the primary runoff that was held on May I think it was May the 18th or 21st, May the 21st. With 7 candidates in the race, I garnered 46.45% of the votes, which was a little short of 50% plus one that's needed in Georgia to win outright. And with the 6 candidates combined, I made the 7th candidate. My votes that I received from the voters was still larger than any of the all 6 combined. And most voters honestly thought I had won the race. They thought we were finished. Oh, Stovall has run. She's gotten the majority. But that wasn't the case. We then went into a primary runoff for 4 weeks. This is when I saw the real way party loyalty plays out. Now, I've seen it with my 8 years as a legislator, because many times, there were times, not many times, but there were times when I did not agree with the party's stance on issues. And I took the stance to vote for the people that I was loyal to, who voted for me, not for standing with the party. And I was criticized a lot of times, but I stood for what I believe was the right thing to do for my constituents, the people that voted for me. The party didn't vote for me, the people did. So with those 4 weeks, y'all would just not believe, it was unreal. It was almost like a Twilight Zone. And I don't have enough time to go into all the details, but I'm going to give you an overview summary of what went down in Georgia history as one of the biggest upsets in Georgia politics. Well, the Georgia Senate Democratic leaders sent out 6 mailers in combination with text messages, phone calls, and who knows what else, claiming me to be a Republican. Now, all those know that I've been a Democrat and I ran as an independent. There's no recording nowhere, anything saying that I was ever a Republican. But they went to the extent of sending out these mailers that had a picture of me with Trump, with Governor Kemp, with Marjorie Greene Taylor, all of them saying that I was a Republican. And here is showing y'all the flyer. So people got these flyers in the mail. And then I start getting phone calls after phone calls. Stovall, you're a Republican? Why you didn't tell me you were a Republican? I said, I didn't even know I was a Republican. I said, have you ever heard me say that? It's like, no, we got these mailers. So number one, that showed me that people will believe a lie rather than the truth first. Now, those who I had served for 8 years knew my track record, and I delivered on everything that I said I was going to do. And that showed up before the lies. So remember what I said, for the primary, I received 46.45% of the vote. So those people, without adding in anything about the party, or saying in contrast that I was a part of another party, the people believed that I was their best choice for being elected for this state Senate seat. Now, the Democratic Party leadership got upset because they said, no, we can't have Stovall down there. because they knew that I'm going to think independently, and I am going to vote for according to what the people have sent me down there to do. And so they did an all-out assault in 4 weeks to dismantle the minds and the thinking of the people in Clayton and in Fayette. Let me tell you some of the things. I showed you that flyer that said, I vote like a Republican, I act like a Republican. I don't know what that is, and basically I'm a Republican. And then they cited all of these supposed to be news articles that were not true. And so if anyone had actually Googled those news articles, they would have saw that some of them they said I was mentioning, my name was never even mentioned in those articles. But when you only have 4 weeks left and you got a massive group that's sending out massive information, and then you got some elected leaders that were going along with the lie, saying I even had people within my own sorority that was promoting the lie as well. It wasn't a lot of them, but it was enough. It was quite a few in there promoting the lie as well. And so, so when you look at getting that, and then not only were they sending those things out, then the Fayette County Democratic Committee, the leader there, they called the group together. And there's a question that came in. I'll answer that question shortly. Got together, gave these people these lies, and a handful of them voted the majority to endorse my opponent in the primary runoff. Now, number one, the smart voters know if I was a Republican in starting with the primary runoff, don't you think I would have been the same Republican in the beginning when I qualified in March? What was the difference in time? None of these mailers went out on me saying I was a Republican in that race with 7 of us in the race. Only when that primary, and my opponent only had 15% of the vote, where I had 46%. So they had to come up with a massive lie to manipulate the voters to get them to be able to vote. Now, this is party loyalty, what I'm talking about, because the people who should have stood up and said this is wrong, it wasn't enough of them. There were some, and I appreciate those leaders within the party that did stand up, but it wasn't enough of them to say, no, we got to stop this because it's setting a precedence. This race set a precedence for future elections to come in the state of Georgia. And so this particular local committee, and it was one person that voted in opposition, but that wasn't the majority. They voted to endorse my opponent in a primary race, a 4-week primary race, and lied to the people saying that I don't line up with the Democratic values and that I was a Republican. Nobody seen that. And then when I questioned them at a meeting, because you're not going to say I did something, I'm going to come and question you. So I went to the party meeting and questioned them as to where did they get this information from, and I want to see it. Then they quote, oh, in 2020, you ran as you left the Democratic Party and ran as an independent. I said, yes, I did. I said, then in 2022, I ran as a Democrat. In 2024, I'm running as a Democrat. Nobody said a thing about Bernie Sanders when who's still an independent, but has caucus with the Democrats and ran as a Democrat for president 2 times. But never did they say I was a Republican. So how did the flyer, all this stuff come up? But anyway, let's move on down. Then, so when they got involved, and even said that the Democratic Party of Georgia gave them a letter saying that they could endorse in a primary runoff, which was a lie. No letter existed. And even some of the members in that Fayette County party asked to see the letter. There was a gentleman there were 2 people that actually went and researched all of my votes that I've done since I've been elected and came back with a report that stated that there's no way that I was a Republican based on the votes that I had, over 80%. And let me tell you all something, for those who don't know, not every time that you're voting that you vote according to your party. There are times where you will not vote with your party, but that should not disqualify you as being a part of that party. Because when there are close votes and they need you, then they want to come and talk to you. And so to say somebody is a Republican and not even want to look at the facts. The one particular gentleman did a whole, about a 20-something page analysis on me, on my voting record, and these mailers that went out. You think they got out to the public? No. I contacted local media, asked them, hey, you all need to report on this because this is a lie. It didn't get out. Only time you heard about it was after the election was over with. So party loyalty, when I'm talking about it, and the reason that's the subject is, it's important for you as voters to understand that people that you're electing in these positions, you need to question them. How, are you loyal to the party, or are you loyal to the people? And so even with that, they did robocalls down at the in Fayette County. They even removed my sign, even before they even voted to endorse my opponent. They removed my sign from out the yard, in front of the yard for the party office. It was crazy, y'all, when I tell you crazy. And now Clayton County, credit to them, they did not vote to endorse my opponent. They said they were staying out of it. But the mere fact that a local committee can do that, believe it or not, you all, it's going to be some of you all running for office. And as soon as you disagree with some of the leaders in the party, you're going to see the same thing happen to you, as far as they're going to say, oh, our bylaws now say that we can endorse a primary election. Now, let me break that down some more for you. A primary election is when all people of the same party are running against each other. So all the Democrats run against each other, and then all the Republicans run against each other. Those are the two major parties that are recognized in the state. And so all of them vote, and you go to the polls and you vote during the primary for, you select what ballot you want. You want a Democratic ballot or you want a Republican ballot. And when you select that, when you go to vote, or even when you're doing absentee, they're going to send you the ballot that only has whatever party you selected. So if you only select a Democrat, you're only going to have Democratic candidates on there. If you select Republican, you're only going to have Republican candidates. You cannot switch at that time. You only can vote for any candidate, whether they're Democrat, Republican, Independent, Libertarian. You only can do that during the general election, which is in November. Or if there's a special election, like the one I was involved in 2020, there was no primary election because it was a special election. So when you have people all voting for one particular candidate that's on that ballot, then what's expected is after whoever becomes the person selected during that primary race, then represents that party for the general election. So that's why you end up having Republicans, Democrat, Independents, Libertarian, all those people listed on your general election ballot. So what sense does it make for the party itself internally, leadership? I'm not talking about individual leaders. I'm not talking about individual leaders, because they do endorse other people. That's not a problem. But when the party entity itself supersedes its power, perceived power, but I guess by the bylaws it was voted in. But even with that, they didn't vote right when how they did that particular vote, and it was challenged. But of course, it was thrown to the side and not even looked at. Some of the members even challenged that they really did not follow the bylaws. But who was going to correct them if the ones at the top, the state party leaders, was in cahoots with them as well? Because the executive committee, they voted to allow the Fayette County to do it, but the state committee, they had to also have the majority of the state committee, and the state committee did not have a majority to vote for Fayette County to be able to endorse my opponent. So thank you for those state committee members who were not so loyal to the party leadership, but to the conception of what the party is supposed to stand for, which we hear about this freedom. We talk about voter suppression. All of that was voter suppression. There was no freedom in the people being able to choose, because you manipulated them. The Senate majority, I'm going to tell you what the group is, Georgia Senate Majority Defense Fund. Now, the average person would think, since the Republicans are the majority, this must have came from the Republicans. So they the one know that Stovall is a Republican. No, that came from the Senate Democratic Leadership Fund. And that's the fund where those senators who are Democrats pay their leadership dues, which on the House side, they pay their dues as well. into this fund. And then you have these organizations that give donations, just like they give donations to candidates. So that's the fund that they use to send these mailers out, because by law, you have to state who is the sender of these mailers. And as you can see over here, that's who the sender of the mailer. And upon further investigation, we went to the Secretary of State's office, looked up, researched, and put in Georgia Senate Majority Defense Fund. And the profile comes up because they're registered in the state of Georgia. It had Gloria Butler as the chair, and it had Harold Jones as the treasurer. So we know at least two and some more that were involved in it, but outwardly we know those two. Now you will wonder, why would people go all over and beyond spend? I know they spent over at least $100,000 in all of those mailers and efforts that went towards a 4-week campaign, y'all, against another Democrat who they tried to claim was not a Democrat, because I would not agree to leadership on what they wanted me to do when they wanted me to do it. No. And even now, not being elected, that does not change my stance. I'm still going to stand for the people. And the candidates that you should be looking at for the election in November, you should be looking at those who are going to stand for the people and not for the party. Because that party loyalty is going to get y'all in trouble, going to get you in a situation that it's going to be hard for you to come back from, especially on the local level. So I told you a little bit about that. Let me tell you something else that they did. These liars even went so far as hacking the system of Data Branch, which is an affiliate of Atlanta Journal-Constitution that gives. So the Atlanta Journal-Constitution asks each one of the candidates to fill out a questionnaire. And on this questionnaire, you put down what party affiliation you are. You answer some questions about what you plan on doing and all of that. So I completed the questionnaire in April. So then Data Branch, after investigating with AJC, they are an affiliate. And so they allow them to use a link from the AJC website to post out about what the point of view is of the platform for each candidate. Don't you know a hacker went into their system? They didn't go into the AJC system, went into the Data Branch system and changed my answer where I said I was a Democrat, changed it to say I was a Republican. They screenshot that and then start texting that out to all the voters. See, she admit that she's a Republican, because see, the flyer wasn't enough that they end up sending that out. And so when they sent that information out, people start calling me again. Stovall, I got this text. It says you put in your AJC questionnaire that you're Republican. I said, go to the main AJC website. When you go in there, you're going to see me listed up on the Democrat. It was two candidates that would, all the candidates that filled out the questionnaire were listed on the Democrat. So if I was listed on the Democrat on the AJC original article of website, how in the world did I all of a sudden switch to say I was a Republican? I'm not slow. I know what I was running as. So, but the average person would not have done the research to be able to go and say, wait a minute, let me go check AJC. Because I reached out to AJC and told them exactly what happened. So all of these things, party loyalty, all because you don't want someone to be able to speak out who's not going to be afraid to speak out for what's right. So moving on. So that question was only present, like I said, and the way that they put it on the text message and how they manipulated it. If you went to the AJC link, you wouldn't even see that question is, what is your party affiliation? Because they already know, because it's listed at the top of it. And you could, right now, because of the general election, you can't get to it to be able to see it, but that's what was happening. So it's so much that went on for those 4 weeks. Y'all, it was unbelievable. It was unbelievable. The lies overpowered the truth in the end results. But, I stand here today to be able to say God's vengeance will prevail for those who willingly try to destroy the innocent. You can, like I told you, you can go to the Secretary of State's office and look it up. I don't have no reason to make up anything that's not true. But these are leaders that's been in office for a long time. That say, hey, we with the party, we believe in freedom. Yeah, you should be able to speak. No, it depends on who you are as to whether you can speak against it. Now, let's travel over to the Republican Party. So this is just not that happens in the Democrat, it happens in the Republican Party as well. And there were and like I said before, there were Democratic leaders who knew this was wrong, what the party was doing, and then to get involved in a primary runoff. Because now you make people unsure about running for office because they don't know if I disagree with this person and they the chair and they in cahoots with the vice chair, are they now going to say that they're going to endorse my opponent over me? You know, that takes away the equality of letting everybody run who wants to run. There was a question said, do you believe Georgia should get rid of the 50% voting rule? I think that Georgia should get rid of it. And there's some talk that's been going on about ranked choice voting, where when you go in to vote, you don't have to worry about going back for any runoff elections. When you go in to vote, you will rank your opponents. I mean, rank your candidates of who you want to be first, second, third, fourth, like that. And then when those votes are tallied, if it does come up that the person does not get it, if you don't do the 50% or the majority rule, and you do the ranked choice, then it starts calculating up what votes would have gone to that person next in line. It's kind of a little complicated, but I don't have time to go over that. And maybe I may do a show talking about ranked choice voter. But yes, it should be, because it was clear, especially with me receiving more votes than the other 6 combined. And my opponent it was not like the opponent had 30% of the vote, only 15% of the vote. The next one said the same thing happened when Nikema was given the seat. Right, it was. Do you believe the outdated electoral college process should be abolished and the popular vote should win? Yes, I think it does, because you can see now with Georgia being one of the swing states, and it's so close here in the state, because you can tell when it's a close election in the state, because you start seeing the candidates 4 and 5 and 6 and 7 times, 10 times. You just keep seeing it, and you see numerous of continued commercials that are going on in those particular states, and Georgia is one. And people may say, well, we have 2 Democratic senators, U.S. senators that were elected, but yet it's still, guess what? You still have a majority of the legislative body on the House and the Senate. You have all the constitutional officers that are all Republicans. So Georgia is not a Democratic state. It's what they may call a purple state, a toss-up state, and that means it can go either way. And what happened with the U.S. Senate race was that there were people that were independents that voted for that Democrat, both those Democrats, and there were people that were Republicans that voted for that Democrat. Now, do you think those Republicans should be thrown out of the Republican Party because they decided to vote for the Democrat? No, vice versa. And even though some people say, well, I don't like one of the candidates, so what? That's the people's choice. If that's who they want to vote for, you all should not be falling out with your family members and friends because of what they chose. They have a reason for how they're choosing. And sometimes it could be the smallest thing that they decide, I don't want to support that party or that particular person that's affiliated with the party. And what did AJC do about the problem was a question that someone asked. They said it was nothing on their end for them to do, and that when they that the branch data was affiliated with them, but they don't understand how that part was manipulated, because on their end they still see it as a Democrat. They saw me that my original information was submitted as a Democrat. So, you know, and then like I said, you got to remember, it's not like the election was kicked off in March where we would have had enough time to really go in and really do a lot of stuff. It was 4 weeks. And when they did that, it was like about 1 week left in the campaign. I mean, they were pulling out all kind of stops to make sure that I did not, was not victorious according to the voting in that particular race. But I was saying earlier about the Republicans. So now you have what's called party loyalty, not people loyalty. so you can be so loyal to the party that you don't want to expose them. And that's what's happening. But what's so funny to me is that you have former lieutenant governor, who has decided to support Biden and now Harris. And then, but look at the ridicule he has received from the Republican Party. That he can no longer run in Georgia as a Republican, and so much other things that they have added in to saying, you're going to be loyal to the party. What's the difference even with me? If I had decided that, or anybody else. Now, it's amazing how the Democrats can clap their hands, jump up and down for the former lieutenant governor. But at the same time, and during the same process, you turn around and slam me down because I didn't agree 100% with the Democratic Party. What's the difference? It's not in it. That's hypocrisy. That's being loyal to a party, but it's okay for the other party for it to happen in the other party. But when it comes to your party and the Democratic Party, you don't want to speak up. But it's like I said, the same things. The Democrats and Republicans, they'll get too wrapped up in party loyalty and not what's best for the people. Look at the platforms that are out there. What do they say they're doing? There's a huge focus on what? Middle class. You ain't hear nothing about the poor people. Well, the poor people make up the America as well. And if they're not doing well, everybody else suffers going up to the top. That's people issues. And I know from firsthand and what I witnessed with my own eyes from within the Democratic Party that I saw them even get involved in the Atlanta mayor's race one time. The Georgia Democratic Party endorsed in a nonpartisan race, which means that there was no party that you could choose when you went to vote. And this was in the Atlanta mayor's race. And it was Bottoms and Mary Norwood. And the Democratic Party sent out a mailer, and I received it, saying that they were endorsing. They had down the leaders on the Democratic House leader, minority leader, and the Senate minority leader were endorsing Bottoms. So I brought up the issue. We were at a meeting at the Capitol. I brought up the issue to the party chair at that time was Porter. And I said, why is the Democratic Party using, first of all, calling out our minority leader? I said, y'all didn't ask us as a House caucus to vote to say that this was okay. Because some of us may not even want to be involved in that particular race. Or some of us may have been supporting the other person. Now you've tied our hands to say everybody thinking and believing that the Democratic Party is supporting Bottoms in this particular situation was Bottoms. I have nothing against whatever. I'm talking about the principle behind what went on and how stuff happened with party loyalty. And when I questioned in a meeting, I was told that they did it because they could do it. That's what I was told. And so, do you think anybody else brought up the issue? It were other leaders, Democratic leaders in that room. They said, well, the leadership, they do what they want to do. No, that's not how it's supposed to work. So what happened to me is not an isolated incident, y'all. It happens a lot on the local levels, but because they don't have a platform to reveal it, it keeps getting swept up under the rug. And it actually destroys the party from inside out. Then you have people that say, well, hey, I'm not going to vote. I don't want to be involved. And you end up making good people who will make outstanding leaders in our communities. You make them afraid, or they get so sour about what happened to them that they turn away from politics. And you know who suffer at the end? It's the people that suffer. Because whenever you don't have good leadership, then the people cannot be excited about changes to happen. And so you take it away, and that's a form of voter suppression. So now, where did all this party affiliation originate from? According to the Library of Congress archives, political factions or parties began to form during the struggle over ratification of the federal Constitution of 1787. Friction between them increased as attention shifted from the creation of a new federal government to the question of how powerful that federal government would be. The Federalists, which was led by Secretary of Treasury Alexander Hamilton, wanted a strong central government, while the Anti-Federalists, led by Secretary of State Thomas Jefferson, advocated states' rights instead of centralized power. Saw the difference in the two, right? Federalists coalesced around the commercial sector of the country, while their opponents, the Anti-Federalists, drew their strength from those favoring an agrarian society. And for those who might not know, that is a society where those who own land more hold more power than those who do not. And it was centered around farming, because at that time, of course, agriculture was very huge, and you having land, and that even kind of shifts down into the whole thing with dealing with the Civil War, which we're not going to get into, about their owning that land. And so the ensuing partisan battles led to then President George Washington to talk about it in his farewell speech that he gave as President of the United States. He said, quote, "Let me now take a more comprehensive view and warn you in the most solemn manner against the baneful effects of the spirit of party generally." So he even said it way back then to warning them of what the effect could be on our country when it comes down to party, leaning so much in the party. And he gave that speech September the 19th, 1796. Ain't that something, y'all? We're going to be the 19th real soon. That was almost 228 years ago. Now, let me cite some more data. According to archives.gov, between 1824 and 1840, a peaceful revolution changed how we felt about political parties and their role in the national life. In the early republic, people were suspicious of parties. Aren't we suspicious now? And look, that was 1824 to 1840. To guard against this threat to liberty, we hear a lot of this going on now. Liberty, I want freedom. But to guard against this threat to liberty, the founders argued that prominent citizens, the elite of society, who they defined as wealthy, educated white men, should be trusted to run the government. Attitudes evolved, however, and political parties were eventually accepted as representatives of the common people. And you think about the word common people, protecting them from tyranny by the social elite. So things were redone over, saying, no, it shouldn't just be one set of people that are able to run the government. We need to have a representative type of government where it is making sure that it is protecting the common people. So what has changed, y'all, from the initial inception of a political party system, which would shape the American viewpoint today? I can tell you, the political parties are not the representative of the common people as to the reason it was established, because that's why that party was continuing to be able to move on in that form at that time. We see this unfolding when the parties can't establish a plan for the common people. Like I said earlier, there's a huge focus about middle class, but what about the poor people who also make up the common people? But both major parties, Democrats and Republicans, dance around so many of those issues, which you all have seen. When party loyalty occurs, then voter suppression creeps in on the scene. And you may say, what is party loyalty? You've been talking about party loyalty. It is allegiance and commitment that individuals have towards a specific political party. Party loyalty does not mean as an elected official, you must vote with the party when it is against the needs of the people. And that is not what party loyalty is. And I want to let you know, I wasn't that elected official who went along to get along. I wasn't that. And there were so many others like me. Some spoke out, then so many of them did not, because of same thing that happened to me. They were scared of what the party was going to do. The party was sometimes threatening. This happened on both sides. I'm going to put somebody in your race to run against you if you don't fall in line. I mean, it's all kind of stuff that goes on behind the scenes that makes that person, that elected official who was voted by the people, supposed to be serving the people, But at the same time, they have to end up being loyal to that party at the detriment of serving the people who actually elected them. You want to know what is voter suppression? We hear that a lot. All these election laws that's been taking place in Georgia, it seems like every year for the past couple of years, there's always an election bill. Now we got stuff going on with the Secretary of the state election board. So all kinds of things. But according to Britannica, the definition is any legal or extra legal measure or strategy whose purpose or practical effect is to reduce voting or registering to vote by members of a targeted racial group, political party, or religious community. So all of them is not just by race, it could be your party or religious community. It seems like every legislative year, like I said, there's something going on with some election laws. So many organizations have claimed it is voter suppression. But what about when a political party is involved in voter suppression? There's voter suppression when the Democratic Party goes over and beyond to file lawsuits in several states to keep certain third-party candidates off the ballot. Yes, ma'am, and yes, sir. More so in Georgia, according to the Grice Connect Capitol Beat News Service, 2 Fulton County judges have removed independent candidate Cornel West and socialist Claudia Dela Cruz from Georgia's presidential ballot, reducing the list of qualified candidates to 4, although their names would still appear on the November 5th ballot due to the timing of the decision. The ruling reversed a decision by Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger late last month. His decision on the 29th permitted 6 candidates to appear on Georgia's presidential ballot. All right, West, Dela Cruz, Vice President Harris, former President Trump, Libertarian Chase Oliver, and Green Party's Stein. You may ask, why are the Democrats so concerned by those 2 candidates, West and Dela Cruz, just like they was concerned about Robert Kennedy Jr.? Why are they so concerned? Did the Republican Party file a lawsuit to remove them off the ballot? No, they didn't. But there was a poll by Quinnipiac University released this week that showed West and Dela Cruz each with 1% of Georgia vote. With both running to the left of Harris, Democrats were concerned they could siphon our votes, or what we call, say, a lot of times we try to say, oh, they're going to take the votes from somebody. How they going to take votes from somebody if you're a voter and you already decide this who you're going to vote for? It don't matter how many people are on there, that's who you're going to vote for. And that should be your choice. You should not be limited to just 2 parties. If it was ever to the 2 parties, they probably would not even have the Libertarian on there. I think it's Chase Oliver that's going to be on there. So the Democrats were concerned that they would siphon out votes from the vice president in what promised to be a close contest for Georgia's 16 electoral votes. Somebody was asked about the electoral votes. See, this is why. Because they count those electoral votes and not the popular vote. According to the AP News, a decision made on Sunday by the Georgia Supreme Court reversed the previous judge's decision. So as of now, so y'all, on Sunday, the Supreme Court did a stay, and they said that those candidates, West and Dela Cruz, votes will count for now. And this came from the Georgia Supreme Court, who paused the orders disqualifying them. Now, and one of the things was the ballots were getting ready to be mailed off this Tuesday for the military and overseas ballots. But guess what, y'all? This does not guarantee that votes for the 2 will be counted. They could still be disqualified by the state high court, which is Supreme Court, in which case these votes for them could be discarded. So in other words, if you decide to vote for West or Dela Cruz on November the 5th, there could be a chance that even though you voted for them, that your votes may not even count. So so it's a lot that's going on. When I start telling y'all about that party loyalty, it's deep, y'all. So I want you all to and they said that also the other part with this is that The presidential choices for Georgia voters would definitely include, I'm going to say it again, Republican Trump, Democrat Harris, Libertarian Oliver, Green Party Stein, and then West and Dela Cruz. And with West and Dela Cruz on the ballot, it would be the first time since 1948 that more than 4 candidates seek Georgia's presidential electors. See, that's history. You get a chance to vote for who you want. I want y'all to watch as I get ready to close out. We coming almost to an end. I know we having some good conversation. Y'all listening, good historical facts. But watch out for your local races because they're important too. Don't get tricked by just picking one party. Examine that platform and ask questions. Don't just vote for them because they got a D. Don't just vote for them because they got an R. Don't just vote for them because they got an I. Vote for who you think is the best candidate for what you see is needed for you and your family. Talk to your family and friends about their thoughts. We can only have an improved quality of living and an improved quality of living when we respect each other's point of view and not taking everything so personal. Y'all don't fall out because of somebody in your family or friend deciding to vote for another party that you're not a part of. Because guess what? The election gonna be over November the 5th, and then you all still gonna have your family and your friends. Don't cause the rift in there like that. Let's work together. You can work together those issues. I'm not a party loyalist, but a people loyalist. There are certain issues that are not party issues, but people issues. You never know what is going on behind the scenes. Again, I'm going to tell you, behind those closed doors, when those party leaders are meeting, you're not there, you're not awake. They meet early in the morning, late at night. You are not privy to what sacrifices they're willing to make to ensure they get a win. Sometimes, from my experience, the win comes at the detriment of the common people. Y'all remember me talking about the common people. So, I have this segment called What Time Is It? It's to say what? And I only have about 8 minutes to get down with the say what in my announcement. But I thank you all for listening in on party loyalty versus people loyalty. This broadcast is recorded. You can always go back and listen to it again. Anytime that you want to listen to what I said, and you could like to have fact checker. You go ahead and fact check it. Now, so every day there are situations happening all around us that make us want to say, what in the what? Yeah, what in the what? So according to U.S. Census, over 21 million renter households spent more than 30% of their income on housing costs in 2023, y'all. More than over 21 million renters in the U.S. spent more than 30% of their household income on housing costs just to have a place to live, represent nearly half, which is 49.7% of the 42.5 million renters. So in the United States, there are 42.5 million renter households. Out of that, they said nearly half, almost half of that number are spending more than 30% of their income just to have a place to live. Say what? Yeah, so that's why I'm telling you, you're talking about party loyalty. It should be people loyalty. These people are suffering. Things are happening. That's what you need to be looking at when you're judging these candidates. Another say what? According to the BBC News, a former Ticketmaster boss who illegally accessed a rival company's computer servers to steal information has been sentenced. CrowdSurge, a website on which artists could sell pre-sale tickets to fans, was a rival ticketing company to, guess what? Ticketmaster. This gentleman, Meade, left CrowdSurge in July 2012, so he was working for CrowdSurge. He was the former boss at Ticketmaster, used to work for CrowdSurge in 2012. He signed a separation agreement which stated that he must not retain or share any confidential information and stipulated he should not work for another ticketing company for a year. So, I don't know what happened. I know one thing. They said he had been sentenced. So y'all can go and Google some more on that, but I just want to say what? Ticketmaster and CrowdSurge. So one of them, both of them, the tickets, and I brought that. had that as part of my show because I know we got a lot of events that are going on. The Falcons game, people buy those tickets. I don't know if the college games are on Ticketmaster, Crowd Surge. So many things. I had one of the comments in the in the feed that said that not if your family is throwing a rock and hiding their hands. So we was talking about the disputes that were going on for the elections. You're right. You for whatever you stand for, you stand firm. They said 10 toes down, stand for it. But have a conversation, be open. Guess what? Thanksgiving is coming up. Christmas is coming up for those who celebrate Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, all those holidays where you're supposed to get together. Some people's face still gonna be turned up because somebody voted for somebody else. Don't do that. Life is too short. We should love each other and respect each other. That's just like all this whole issues on the immigrants, talking about the Haitian immigrants doing whatever they're doing. Well, if it's part of what their culture they're used to doing, it's no different if Americans go over to Haiti or go over to another country and we'll say, what the world? What they doing? They'll be looking at us and say, y'all Americans don't do that. So we have to learn how as Americans to respect other people's culture. I'm not saying if they was taking those animals or whatever they said they would claim to do it, that they was doing was right. What I'm saying is we have to have an understanding and just know that those Haitians are not their fault that they're in there. Those immigrants that are over here that came through the border, it's not their fault that they're over here. We're supposed to have policies in place to prevent and protect Americans that are living here. And we have a process, immigration process that should be followed. And if it needs to be updated, which it should be, then it needs to be updated. And that's where your policy comes in for those elected officials that are in Washington, D.C. to do that part. That's why I go back again about this party loyalty, y'all. Be people loyal. Be loyal to the people, not loyal to your party. Now, I have a couple of announcements as I get ready to close out. This Saturday, you all, if you were in the Clayton County area, you missed out on the gathering. This was a huge success hosted by Hand, Heart, and Soul Project. Shout out to the staff and the founder, Wandy, and also in collaboration with the United States Department of Agriculture, SNAP-Ed. And everybody know what SNAP-Ed, that is another name for food stamp. So they don't use the word food stamp, but those of us from back in the day, we know it's food stamp. But it's SNAP-Ed. And their initiative to focus on increasing food security, physical activities, and nutrition. There are many of our areas across the state, in particular, even in Clayton, that are food deserts. That means that they don't have readily accessibility, to fresh fruits and vegetables. And so because of the number of recipients that are eligible to receive SNAP, this particular program was created to help them to be able to connect to being able to get access to that. And we have a lot of food pantries, but the issue was that the communication of where to go to be able to get these food pantries. So that was major discussion. So I led the facilitation of the Clayton Collaborative Group, which brought together leaders in the business, nonprofit, faith-based community, and elected officials. We met together over 8 months, and we came up with solutions, short and long-term goals of what we think we can do as leaders to make sure it's easily accessible for those who are eligible recipients. So not just the ones who are actually getting, but there are others who are eligible that may not have applied for whatever reason or not on the receiving SNAP. And there consisted of 57 leaders, y'all. I am so excited and thankful for all those leaders who participated in the Clayton Collaborative. They made a difference. I mean, we had some strong, good conversation. And guess what, y'all? It wasn't party affiliated. It was what? People issue. Housing, food insecurity are people issue. And we were able to come together no matter what our party affiliations were to talk about solutions for this particular county on what we can do. And with that, we came up with, hey, we need to make sure that the nonprofits have the information and be able to get the information out to the general public, what these nonprofits are able to provide, what these companies are able to provide. So we hosted a training from Find Help Georgia. And for those who don't know, there's another alternative, 211. You can still use 211 United Way, but findhelpga.org. It's FINDHELPGA.org. It's a nationwide database. So it don't even matter where you go in the United States. If you need help and you're looking for resources, you go into that website and you put in where you're located, what you're needing. And it's www.find help HELPGA.org. And this is hosted by Georgia to Prevent Child Abuse Foundation, organization. It's a state agency, and they're the one that manages the website. But you can go on there and find just about anything that you're looking for. It even gives you a profile of the organizations that are signed up, and they do vet these organizations, y'all. They do vet these organizations. So we hosted that, and then thankful to the Men and Women in Radio Foundation, D Hill, shout out D Hill, woo woo. She also conducted a workshop or a session, a presentation on telling them how to be able to connect to radio stations. And remember, we don't just have the radio stations that are on the radio where we tune in with our in our cars or at home, but now you have internet like WCEG is a part of the radio network, and you have podcasts. So we talked about all of those, so how to get the information out to those instruments in digital media, how you get the information out to what people are actually listening to or looking at. And so she did a great presentation on that, talking to the leaders on how to be able to get the information out. And kudos to Crystal Perry of Melanated Pearls. She was the facilitator for the Clayton Collective, which made up of the actual SNAP recipients. So we were able to hear the voices from the leaders and then hear the voices from the people who were actually receiving it. And some of the solutions they came up with identifying doing a magnet, refrigerated magnet, doing some science in the community, so, letting people know where they can be able to go to get help. Because many times that's what it is. And we even talked about senior citizens, our senior adults who are not so tech savvy. How do we not leave them out? Because many of them are SNAP recipients or SNAP eligible. So we talked about the different things with that, with not just everything being digital, but some things that they can be able to use in their hand. And like I said, Clayton Collective came up with having those refrigerator magnets that they can be used. So if you want more information on what took place on Saturday, it was great, fantastic. We had someone from Luckett Family Farm up in Austell, talked about essential oils and hypersols. I learned something new with that. We had a gentleman that was called Paint and Sip. You had that. We had Southern Roots. They were actually doing a drawing while we were in the session. So you can be able to see everything that we talked about. He was actually drawing it live while we were in session. It was just amazing of everything. We had a yoga session. We had a table, a panel discussion from gangsters to growers, or gangster to growers, and also Black sustainability as well. I mean, it was powerful, y'all. But anyway, go to handheartsoulproject.org, handheartsoulproject.org website, and you can see all those, or you can follow them on social media. Now, as we get ready to end, I'm a little bit past my time. All right, I got to tell you about my granddaughter, Nova. She's going to be 7 months. That's my first and only grandchild, y'all. She's going to be 7 months on this Wednesday. Wow, what a difference a grandchild can make in your life. I never understood out here, all my friends saying, oh, I just love my grandchild. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, okay. And so now, not until you get a chance to experience on your own, do you understand the joy that, just to know that you have an extension of your legacy that's going to be continuing, could possibly continue your work. They can look back at history and say, oh, my grandmother was a state elected official. She was the first independent African-American woman to run as an independent for U.S. Senate. Oh, she did this and that, and being able to tell her children and her children's children about a legacy that's been left, that's awesome. And so, of course, she could not call me grandmother. For those who've been listening to my other shows, she has to call me Iya, which means mother. It's Iya for grandmother, which is mother of the mother. But I know most people not going to remember the second Iya. So it'll be EI, and that is in the Yoruba language. So instead of grandma, Nana, Gigi, don't call me all of that. It's EI, EI, IYA. And so, and also I know she's gonna make a great baby model. We got to figure out how to get her on the screen. But I have been asked over and over again, when will I begin my policy series again of providing inside tips on how policies are developed and implemented. So in November, you all be on the lookout. I'm going to kick that series back off to be for those who really want to know what goes on behind the scenes, how a bill's developed, how policies are implemented across the spectrum. And so if you're interested and you're serious about it, be on the lookout. You can make sure you follow me on your social media, on my social media platforms at Valencia Stovall, and be on the lookout for the details, because we're going to get started. And we're going to, in this particular series, we're looking at doing a fellowship where we'll even, it'll even go fall into the time of sessions. So you'll be able to go down into the legislative session. Actually, I'm going to give you the tidbits, what to look for when you're talking about those bills, what's going on, those committee hearings, all of that. And we'll make it personalized to something that you may be interested in yourself, and how to be able to apply that knowledge. Civics lessons were actually taken out of many of our schools. Of course, now the legislative body have said we need to put it back in. But that's what's missing when it comes down to why we have so much voter apathy. It's because people don't understand the power in their vote, and they don't understand how to hold the elected officials accountable, because you don't even know what they're supposed to do. So how are you going to hold them accountable if you don't even know what their job description is? So we're going to go over all of that. So by the time you finish that policy series, you're going to be well equipped to be able to tackle any issue that's facing you, your family, or somebody else, anything that you're interested in. Well, y'all, time has caught us. All good things must come to an end. We will be back on Monday, October the 7th. And yes, I will have a website, but we'll be back on October the 7th at 4 p.m. with new topics and exciting guests. The goals of Issues and Answers with yours truly, Honorable Stovall, is to educate you on those things that you might not think about unless you're in a situation to be concerned. And today we had a situation that for you to be concerned about party what? Loyalty or party or loyalty to the people? People loyalty or party loyalty? All right, thank you all so very much. I enjoyed. Thank you all for listening in. And remember, we'll be back here Monday, October the 7th. But in the meantime, be on the lookout on my social media platforms about the upcoming policy series. We're going to dig down deep into how policies are created and done, not just in Georgia, but what it will do is kind of even on the federal and national level, where you can be able to take the information, even though some areas may vary. But once you get a foundation of it, then you'll be good to go. All right, thank you, and thank you, WCEG Talk Ready. And this is our new season. Make sure you tune in to some of the other co-hosts that'll be on the air as well.